Maine State Chamber of Commerce hosted its 2024 Healthcare Forum over Zoom today.
Representatives from local organizations discussed Maine's housing shortage, both the economic toll and the cause and effect it has on healthcare. Issues include the lack of smaller homes and communities for older folks to downsize to after raising a family, and a steady decline of jobs as prospective workers have no place to live.
Possible solutions include changing zoning laws to allow more housing density in rural areas, fostering community support and understanding of public housing, and building more programs and subsidies throughout the state. They say housing directly affects the health of individuals and their communities.
That health does not just happen in your doctor's office when you pick up your prescription at the pharmacy or when you have an emergency and have to go get a broken bone set. Health happens where we live, work, and play. And that is what we're talking about here today, that housing is essential to health. Recreational opportunities are essential to health. Education, all of these community factors influence our ability to be healthy as individuals and to have healthy, thriving communities and healthy, thriving businesses because our employees are healthy.
Many participants described the collaborative work they're doing with other local public agencies and organizations to create a multifaceted solution to the complex problem of housing.